biggest hurdle towards obtaining a healthy personal relationship with the one who formed you in the secret place and breathed you into being is recognizing the separation gap that exists in your own heart and mind. We are the originators of separation between ourselves and the Creator. We created through our beliefs. We set up our own thoughts and ways to supersede His thoughts and ways. Whether a person is a Christian or not, inside the church or outside, it's the same. Regardless of the circumstances that lead us to this place, we decide the type of relationship we will have with the Father. For a long, long time, religion has asserted itself as the gatekeeper in this relationship between God and man. And man's attempt to protect the sacred has adversely constructed barriers between himself and God. Barriers that Father never created. And through religion, man sets God apart. He sets him in the heavens, far above, unattainable and unapproachable. And religion convinces man that the Creator can only be accessed by abject groveling. And through sufficient grasping of His holy hymn, we just might be able to convince Him to hear our desperate prayers. Otherwise, keep it to yourself, and keep it quiet down there or else. What's more, religion has made the saved man believe that for the remainder of his days on the earth, he will remain a sinner. Saved by grace, but sinner nonetheless. And although we have obtained bold access to God through His covenant in Christ, we have been cowed by religion to leave those lofty interruptions to a select few, except in great need. Truly, this belief, this way of thinking is absurd. This whole premise makes it impossible for any real, sustainable relationship with our Father. And I don't blame anyone who rejects such a man-made construct outright. It doesn't at all agree with the image of a Father Creator seeking an intimate relationship with man, displayed through the demonstrated life of our brother Yeshua. Even in the Old Testament, we see a God who actually has His arms outstretched. In the New Testament, He is in among the sinners with Yeshua. And that's even more important because that's the pattern that we're walking in the likeness of Christ. What did He say? When you see me, you see the Father. Well, what did we see Him do? He was eating with the sinners. He was very much engaged in their world. He was building relationships and friendships. He was breaking bread with the lost, the corrupt, the unwashed masses doomed to die. He didn't stand off and wait for it to come to Him. He went to them. He was very engrossed with them. And yet, being around the unwashed masses didn't change Him. He didn't lose His holiness because He was mingling with them. You see Him going the extra mile to grab a hold, right? He's searching out that one. He wasn't demonstrating or saying, you've got to get cleaned up and dressed up and come bearing gifts before you come into my temple, before you get an audience to talk with me. No, He went to the highways and the byways, to the back alleys. Remember Decapolis? Everything He did and said shouted this statement, hey, I love you and I want to be with you. That's the attitude. That's the example we see in Christ. And He says, do you see me? Do you see what I'm doing? That's what my Father's doing. That's the way my Father is towards you. Through the life of Yeshua, the Father counters this self-inflicted mindset of separation and goes to war against the unseen haters, viciously working to keep us apart from Him. They're snaring us by twisting the Father's words against us. And in their success, they've accomplished another thing that they hate just as much, destroying the brotherhood, the unity of mankind. They separate us from one another and change the way we view our neighbors and their relationship with Yahweh. We start to think that the Father has rejected them because of their sin, and so we do the same thing. The reality is, He's not rejecting them because of their sin. We're rejecting them because of our sin, in the same way we reject Him. Instead, what is He doing? Reaching out to our neighbor. He's saying to them, I left the 99 safe and sound back in the fold, and I came out to find you. And I'm right here reaching for you. And I want you to come with me. And how do most people living with this disconnection respond when the Father goes to their neighbor, the sinner? They get offended. They get mad. Why did you go to their house? Why didn't you visit me? And He responds, you didn't want me to come to your house. How is this not like the Pharisees of Yeshua's day? Yeshua stepped from His throne, laid down His glory, to come and tell us just how much He and the Father love us. And what do many of us do? We respond like Israel at the foot of Mount Sinai. We say, no, send Moses, send someone else more qualified to go talk to God. Now, there are a couple things that influence this self-separating response. The first is shame. Shame is a covering. Man first put it on in the garden. Adam and Eve broke their relationship with the Father, and so they hid themselves. They were ashamed by their choice, so they decided to separate themselves from the Father. What was the Father's response? Well, he came looking for them. He knew exactly what had happened, and it's quite possible he came to heal the breach. Genesis doesn't say this out loud, but it seems quite in line with the Father's character, don't you think? In the same way, when we are ashamed, we cover ourselves, right? We self-deprecate. I'm no good. You don't want me. You don't like me because I have sinned. I'm bad, etc., etc. Or we cover ourselves in another way by shifting the blame upon someone else and playing the victim as the reason for our separation. It's the church's fault that I lost my faith. They're the hypocrites. They're the reason I no longer believe in God. And so we reinforce this separation by blaming others. And under this covering of shame, many choose to remain in darkness. They don't want their darkness revealed. I did bad things, and I don't want to look at them. I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to bring them into light. They refuse Yeshua the opportunity to come and remove it, to clean and to heal those areas as described in Hebrews 4:12. And so they choose to keep their junk and stay hidden in the darkness. Another influencing factor to self-inflicted separation is simply a love for darkness. Now, this is a very disheartening choice. It's real and it's extreme. Not only do they not want to let light reveal their darkness, to clean it, to heal it, they prefer it over the light and they enjoy it. They want to stay in it. And by their choices, they are continually declaring, no, you're not rejecting me. I'm rejecting you. Forget you. Whether there's a hell or not isn't really an issue. It doesn't matter where they go because as sovereign beings, they've already made the choice to go away, to go somewhere apart from him. And you or I can't change that. But one thing is certain. He will never ever stop reaching out with love, saying, come to me. But their rejection of the Father is the issue. And I think if you sit long enough with anyone and talk about their broken relationship with Yahweh, their Creator, it goes one of three ways. Either they don't believe who he says he is, or they don't believe who he says they are, or they don't want to be who he made them to be. Regardless, they are the one causing the separation. Of course, there are layers to this, and it doesn't happen overnight. We make small choices each and every day that either draws us closer or moves us farther away from the Father. The restorative journey of relationship is like peeling away layers of an onion and discovering, oh wow, there's still parts of me that are pushing him away. There's still parts of me still covered in shame. There's still darkness within me that I'm choosing to love. But if my heart is pushing to move towards him, I work on removing these things. Being now aware of them, I don't let them remain. For love's sake, let's cut this thing out. Let's deal with it, right? I don't want anything to be the cause of separation between my Father and I. Now, I know he's closer than my skin, and he's cleaning me, but there are still areas that still push away. How do I know this? Because I still trigger. I have emotional pushbacks that result from certain circumstances. And when those happen, I rejoice and say, thanks, Father, for this opportunity, because now I see another point of separation and I want to deal with it right away. But that's only because I have a relational love with him, and I understand that he's continually leaning in towards me. Years ago, when I was still living in this old mindset, I was moping about in shame one day, and I said to the Father, why do you want to be around me? Look, here's another issue in my heart. Here's another issue in my soul. I'm never going to be like you. All of these negative statements kept swirling around in my heart until he said, stop. You fell in the mud, you got scuffed up, but get up. I'm here now. I'm loving on you, and I'm reaching down. I'll get in the mud with you, because mud doesn't stick on me, right? The reality is, he makes us holy because he is holy. As we get close to him, he cleans us, makes us see ourselves better, and we start to look at our neighbors and creation in this new light. But when we maintain this whole separation, we work against this. We start to do these crazy things. We start to believe that he has separated himself from us, and we begin to think that in order to get closer to him, we must separate ourselves from the world. And once separated from the world, we create a belief that we can never engage again with those in the world. Otherwise, they will tarnish our holiness and disqualify us before God. This is such a foolish concept. How fragile is your holiness? How fragile is your righteousness that you can't mingle with your neighbor in their atmosphere? Because if you do, the corruption and sin of that place will make you diseased and dirty again. Really? Is that the level of your holiness? That certainly does not reflect Yahweh's holiness. He doesn't lose any light or diminish in his stature when he walks among the masses, along the highways and the byways and in the back alleys. You know what David said, right? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. The Father's holiness doesn't lose any of its potency. Actually, quite the opposite occurs. When he shows up, everything else changes. When he puts his hand upon us, he makes us holy because he's holy. And in the belief of that relational dynamic, we become the same for our estranged neighbors. So we can go into the world and not be blemished by it, but change it because of the holiness in us. But first, we must close the separation gap within our own hearts and minds. The Father is right there with his hands outstretched in love to us. The choice is really in our hands. All of our relationships are, with our family, our neighbors, the stranger on the street, and with creation. And their success is dependent upon the health of our relationship with the Father. It all comes out of this. But he's made it easy for you to draw near. He's already come 99% of the way. He's closer than your skin. All he's asking now is that you say yes. Yes to the light, to the truth, and the way, and come the last 1%. He's eagerly waiting to pull you into himself, to experience the glorious relationship you were made for. Thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to this podcast. I greatly appreciate it. If you're listening for the first time and you want to continue following the podcast, head over to Substack, search for Sugaluos, and click on the subscribe button. If you want to learn more about Sugalu Studios, check out my website at sugalustudios.com. You can also find me on Telegram, X, Discord, and YouTube. Until next time, continue to discover the you he designed you to be.